Hello and welcome back to my podcast. It is still only me. It's been a while since I made the last episode, and I've been all over the place. I've sort of been gathering ideas for the next few episodes about a whole bunch of stuff that's happened and a whole bunch of stuff I'd like to talk about that hasn't been really recent, but I'd still like to talk about. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. So the first thing I want to talk about is Rimac's purchase of Bugatti. Now, if you're a bit out of the loop, you probably don't know. You probably are wondering, what's a Rimac? What's a Bugatti? The second question is probably less common because most people know Bugatti for their famous Veyron for hitting 268 miles per hour and having the world record. Everyone knows them for that. And that's a topic I'll get into later about why that's a massive issue. But Rimac is this little Croatian startup company making electric hypercars. They were featured on the Grand Tour back in 2018 when iconically Richard Hammond crashed his after the brakes refused to work. Or we don't even know. All we know is that Richard Hammond didn't brake at a corner and he went tumbling off a hill and had a massive fire. But Rimac apparently had a whole lot of money put into them because they were able to purchase Bugatti from Volkswagen, which, if you don't know, is probably the second largest car company in the world behind something like GM. I don't even know what their statistics are at this point. But you have to consider like how big of a deal that is. Volkswagen they own Audi, they own Porsche, they own BMW. Well, I don't even know if they own BMW. They own Lamborghini. They used to own Bugatti, but now Rimac owns that, and they own themselves, obviously. So it's a massive company. And this little Croatian startup company is buying a 110-plus-year-old supercar company from Volkswagen, of all people, is both a good sign and a bad sign. Now let's get into the good thing first. The good thing is that Volkswagen, we don't really know the extent of the effect they've been holding back on Bugatti. I mean, there's a sign that Volkswagen was directing them as per the original concept cars following the EB110 with the sedan and SUV concepts that no one remembers except for me, apparently. And Volkswagen just probably told them, hey, this is a terrible, terrible idea. Don't go the route of Maserati, because Ferrari had to salvage them after they nearly ruined themselves, and they're back to ruining themselves. And somehow they're getting away with it. Lamborghini made an SUV, and they actually did it right, so who knows what Bugatti would have done. Anyways, let's get into the bad, and that is the statements. There were two things that I find really bad about this purchase. One is the initial meeting between Volkswagen and Rimac. Not a single executive from Bugatti showed up. They were all registered to be there. Not a single one of them showed up. And second, the statement from Rimac about future electrification of Bugatti, basically stating that they're going to fully move to electric vehicles, which means killing off Bugatti's iconic, absolutely iconic W16 engine, and there is no understating how powerful of a statement that must be to the executives at Bugatti, because none of them showed up to that meeting after Rimac basically saying, hey, we're going to kill off your most iconic thing about your cars is that huge, loud W16. And it's just, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Rimac needs to shove it and just leave Bugatti alone. Let them, it's like the same thing Chrysler is doing. You know, they're forcing Dodge to start developing electric cars when Dodge has made it very clear they'd rather keep pumping out the Dodge Challenger with bigger V8 every few years. I mean, they've been doing that for the past how many long years, while Chrysler's busy pushing out hybrids, plug-in hybrids and electrics and diesels and all sorts of garbage. Anyways, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Next up, I want to talk about Lotus. This whole episode is going to really be about electric cars, or about cars in general, But there are some things I want to talk about towards the end that aren't car related. So I'll probably put like a chapter in for where I stop talking about cars because I love cars. But anyways, I want to talk about Lotus. And if you're still listening, even if you're under a rock, Lotus is this little. It's a British sports car company that's been on the aisle for about 70 years. This is coming from an American, so I don't even know how long they've been there. They could have been there for 80, 90, I don't know. But Lotus, they've developed a few sports cars like the Elise, the Esprit, and the I'm trying to think of the other one, the Exige. There we go. They recently announced, well, they showed off the Evira. I think I've got that name right. And it's a fully electric car. Let me pull up Lotus's website so I can make sure I'm not talking out of my butt. But one thing I know I'm not talking about out of my butt about. Let's see. No, the Emira was the name. But one thing Lotus did make a statement about was that they were going to be unveiling 4 more electric cars in the next few months. In the next few years, anyways. And one of them is an SUV. Now, I don't know where Lotus thinks they're going with this, because everyone knows, as Jeremy Clarkson once said, Lotus stands for lots of trouble, usually serious. And because Lotus is going for a sports market, if you are marketing a sports SUV, which is already a sports utility vehicle, it's going to be a sports utility vehicle. Sorry, that's just a stupid concept, a sports utility vehicle. But anyways, because of Lotus's horrible reliability rate, especially in newer cars, and older ones, so let's not forget the Esprit breaking down on James May multiple times. I heavily doubt that they're going to really get anywhere, especially since the only redeeming factor that could possibly save it would be the fact that it's electric. And the only people who buy electric cars are soccer moms and really, really just crazy people who are electric sims, as I like to call them. These are the kind of people, if you want my terminology of electric sims, it's people who believe that gas cars are going to ruin the world and that everyone needs to be driving a Toyota Prius or a Tesla model whatever. Those are electric sims. They're awful kinds of people. If anyone tries to tell you that driving an electric car is good for the country or the nation, just tell them to shut up. Because it's probably doing it does as much damage, if not more, to the country, to the world, anyways, that a gas car does, via lithium mining. And I'm probably gonna get taken down for making that comment, but it's the truth, and they don't like it. Look up Tesla's cobalt child slave mines up in Africa. That's a really good topic of discussion, but I'm not going to talk about it anymore, because I want to talk about the EU versus Italy. So what's happening in the European Union, as far as I've heard, is that they're having a deadline set ban on internal combustion engines, which are basically like Lamborghini V12, Ford, the Mustang V8, the Dodge Challenger's V8 Hemi, all of those are internal combustion engines. Basically, any gasoline vehicle is an ICE, as it's referred to. Well, the EU has made it so by 2035, all of those engines will be banned. And Italy, as we know, is the home of Ferrari, of Lamborghini. I would say Fiat, but they don't really have anything. They're the home of Pagani. They're the home of the pure modern supercar. They are the home of the V12, of the V8. Well, not the V8. America made the V8. They're the home of the V10, the V12, and the V16, if you will. And of course, because they have such a historic heritage, Italy is fighting tooth and nail to make sure that this ban that at least for supercar makers, which Italy argues makes less cars than modern mainstream companies like, say, Chrysler or Chevrolet or Ford, that they should be given exemptions because, they're lesser companies. Like, if you're going to ban Pagani from making a V12 just because Mercedes sold like 300,000 cars last month, that's a bit stupid, because Pagani only makes like a couple hundred cars every few years. and it's ridiculous. Every like decade they make 100 cars. It's insane how rare Pagani's are. I'm trying to think if there's anything else car related I need to talk about before I move on to my next topic. Not really. Okay, next topic. So, in the time that I was taking my break, Call Me Carson made his return, and everyone's seen it. Everyone watched the stream or the stream afterwards. However, and I was one of the people who was watching the stream. I watched it for about 2.5 hours, or 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half. I wasn't keeping track. I watched a good chunk of it. I got the good meat and bones. I got the meat, and I understood that he was coming back and things probably weren't going to be the same. However, I left that stream feeling quite like I wished he hadn't come back just because of what was being offered. Now, I'm not talking about him giving everything to charity. That's fine. I like that. You can give stuff to charity. That's fine. However, what I don't like is his kind of shift in strategy, where he's shifting away from like friend video, a lot of streams with friends, making a lot of content, to just streaming by himself and not really making a whole lot of content for YouTube. That kind of thing, I feel like, does not work for Carson, because how Carson's videos work, especially on his main channel, you can't really have Carson by himself. You can very rarely have him by himself. The most you can really get away with is like him alone if he's talking a lot with chat, or if he's playing with chat, or if he's playing with someone like Josh, because that relationship is another topic for another day. However, the issue with the main channel is I feel like Carson's comedy really requires other people for it to bounce off of. I'm trying to think of a way to say this. He just really does not work in a whole lot of scenarios unless you have other people. Like the Sea of Thieves videos with Quackity, Josh, and Mason. If that was just Carson by himself, I probably would not like those videos. I definitely would not like those videos as much as I do. Because with Mason, Quackity, and Josh there, you have a bunch of fun to bounce and a bunch of energy to bounce off of, and it makes the video as a whole a lot better. Like if Carson, when he threw the fireball at Josh, if it had just been him throwing the fireball to the sail, that probably wouldn't have been funny. But because Josh immediately reacts to it, that is hilarious. And I feel like because of that missing sort of thing coming from Carson's new streams, I feel like it probably would have been better if he had not returned at all, or if he just like came back a little later after he had reestablished his old format. Like I can understand if he can't get that format back because of what happened, because I think people like Jay Schlatt really aren't ready to forgive him yet for holding that away, something like that, for a long time from them, especially since they were his closest friends. Especially Josh, since I know he felt betrayed. He said that on stream a few times and on Twitter, because he had no clue about this until it got out to the public after, it's a whole mess. I don't want to talk about that yet. Everyone's argued over it over Twitter and cancel culture and all that. Is really not something I want to talk about right now. But yeah, that's why I feel like Call Me Carson just really should not have come back. Just, you're a good guy, but please, I don't like your return strategy at all. Aside from the charity thing, that's all right. Well, we've dwindled it down to the last topic I have for this episode, which is Undertale, because it's surprisingly only 2 months ago I actually played Undertale for the first time. I know, I showed up 6 years late to the party. Just as I'm speaking this, Toby Fox, I believe in a few days, is having the 6th anniversary live stream where he's playing Deltarune. And I have still not played Deltarune, and I have no intention to, because the gameplay looks bad. And also, I don't like playing games when there's only one chapter. When there's not a whole lot to bite down. That's the reason why I like. Anyways. Yeah, Undertale really feels like a game that breaks the boundaries of what it means to be a game.
Because a whole lot of indie games, they struggle. I don't even know where I'm going at this point. I just want to talk about Undertale and how it is a brilliant little game. Like, that is the first game in a while to emotionally touch me on a level that other games have not. Like, the only other games I can feel like that have done that would be Minecraft, just because of the nostalgia it holds. Not really anything else I can think of. Just because maybe Club Penguin Rewritten, but again for the nostalgia. Undertale just brings the sense of how the characters are feeling. Like an emotional level that you do not get with other games I've played. But then again, I don't play a whole lot of games where you're talking to other people and developing relationships with these people. I'm not really sure what else to say other than Asriel. I could go on about Asriel and how Asriel and Chara, they should have had they should have been saved. I feel like they could have had redemption arcs. Like Asriel and Chara, they get to come back to the surface world. But that's left up to fan interpretation, I guess. Toby Fox doesn't like expanding on lore. Nor does he like actually making merchandise for the best character in the game, because the only thing you get for Asriel is a shirt of the Hyper Death form. Gosh darn it, would it have been so hard to make a plushie of Asriel? You know how many people would have bought that, and he still just threw it away because we can't reveal the best character in the game is actually a flower, so we have to lock it behind like Etsy. We have to leave it up to them and charge like $90 for it, and I get that it's quality, but I could buy Toby Fox. All you'd have to do is just get like whatever website it is that he uses. I don't even remember. I know that all they have is that Hyperdeath shirt, and it was commissioned by Toby. All you get from Asriel is like a page in the art book, and then that shirt. Why couldn't you have had a plushie? Not even Flowey got like a plushie. He got a toy. He got all that stuff. Chara, I believe, also got stuff, but not Asriel, because Toby Fox is the worst person on planet Earth and decides that the best character in the game doesn't get to have anything. Sorry, I went off a little bit because I really like Asriel. It's just like, imagine if Nintendo just like didn't make any merchandise of, say, Isabelle. That would be really awful. Just because, like, there would be a huge amount of outrage over, like, why can't I have merchandise of my favorite character without having to go third party? And I imagine that happened a lot with the Undertale community, because I wasn't in there at the time when Undertale came out. I was busy playing Five Nights at Freddy's. Well, I was busy not even playing the game, playing the Roblox version, because I didn't have enough money. I didn't have a computer to play the original games up until now, and I had a phone, but I wasn't gonna ask my mom to download a horror game. Sweet Lord, no. But I was busy being in the Five Nights at Freddy's community for like 4 more years after that, and I only recently played Undertale because I had basically been yelled at by some of my friends to do it, and it was free in Xbox Game Pass, so I was like, I'll play it. So I played through it in like 6 hours, and it was the best 6 hours of my life. Well, not my life. It was a very good 6 hours. Like, I want to play the game again, but I don't want to because I feel like it hurts me too much to press that reset button, and I'm not doing it. So therefore, I am never opening up Undertale on my computer again, other than to check how long it took me to beat it, which I think is like, I don't even know how long. I know 6 hours or something like that. Anyways, now that I'm done rambling about all that, I'm really out of ideas at this point on what else to discuss. I may just leave this episode up for a little bit while I gather more conversation ideas while some more stuff happens. I imagine it will. Without getting political, of course. If I made an episode political, I could go on for 30 minutes, 30 hours, however long I could want. But I'm not that kind of person. I don't want politics in my podcast, even after I rambled about how electric cars are not going to save the planet. Anyways, thanks for listening to this episode of my podcast with only me. See you whenever on Earth I feel like making another episode again.